52-28. So I was thinking about the way the game unfolded, and I don't even know that we take the score exactly into account at halftime. It was 20-17 at the half. Ole Miss scored the touchdown with 18 seconds. That's not right. With 21 seconds left in the first half to make it a 3-point game. And whatever level of concern you had about the outcome of the game ended right there. I mean, you weren't worried that Ole Miss ultimately was going to win the game. You probably were worried a little bit about how it might look. So, given the fact that in the previous two games, Ole Miss had scored only 3 points in the second half, I present this scenario to you. If Ole Miss played the second half that it played against Vanderbilt on Saturday in the first half, and they played the first half that they played in the second half, would you feel differently about Ole Miss today than you do given the way the game was played? Am I asking that in a way that makes sense?
That makes sense, because then you would be talking about going from habit to trend to who you are.
Third straight game, terrible second half.
In 6 games, they have only played one complete offensive game. All of the others were good first halves. For whatever reason, very, very bad second halves, and the script flipped a little bit. I mean, it's funny. You mentioned the way it felt going into the half. You could see, he didn't say this, but you could tell in Lane Kiffin's halftime interview with Alyssa Lang, I believe. Mm-hmm. He was basically like, yeah, we're good. It's fine. I'm not worried. He knew exactly what was about to happen. After that, look, they sleptwalked. And, some people call that an excuse. You can call it an indictment on the coaches, however you want to spin it. But very clearly, even if you were watching that game through the clearest of lenses, you saw a team that was not focused. It was not very energized or whatever, kind of sleepy. And Vanderbilt was, and they were coming off of a bye week, and good things happened to them. And you got that really bad interception, and then talent and scheme and playmakers and quarterback and line play took over, and Ole Miss dominated the second half of the game. I don't think it's any deeper than that, really. Now, do you like to come out of the gate slow against Vanderbilt and look the way you did? No. I mean, they had penalties. Here's the interception right here. Just mind-numbing throwing this football. That's just a horrible decision, beyond horrible.
I didn't see that one in real time. I was attempting to watch the Ole Miss game.
That's a bad one.
In like the little corner screen on my iPad while broadcasting another game. So I kind of caught scores during commercial break. Watched almost all the second half. I will say that Jordan Watkins, you see him running away from people right there. He had a really big game. Mingo had a really big game. Well, Zach Evans had a pretty good football game. And, there's been so much talk about Quinshon Judkins, and I think it's probably good that you look up and you see that Zach Evans had 81 yards or 80 yards in the game and a touchdown. Ole Miss flipped the script a little bit, and here's what I thought was really important. Ole Miss has established itself as a running football team. Lane Kiffin tells you, those guys get paid to coach too. So if you're playing a team whose identity is running the football, then in terms of building your game plan, if you build your game plan to go out and stop the pass, you're going to let them do what they do well and they're comfortable doing. And so if your game plan is, well, this is what they do well, we're going to do everything we can to slow down or stop that, and then they beat you in a different way, there's a portion where you're like, okay, you have to kind of tip your cap. And that's what Ole Miss did, right? I mean, they had 143 yards on the ground. That's fine on 28 carries. That's an average of 5 yards per carry, 5.1 yards per carry. That's absolutely fine. Jackson Dart went out and threw it for 448 yards. It would have been fine if Ole Miss had run it for 150 and thrown it for 320. That would have been a good day. But to go out and throw for 450 and run for 150 and have nearly 600 yards of total offense. I think it was important for Ole Miss to prove that it could do that.
Yeah, and especially when it's going to get a little bit tougher, because Auburn, despite them being a disaster, are going to offer more defensive resistance than Vanderbilt could. I mean, you've got to go to Baton Rouge, and they're a disaster too at this point, relatively speaking, but they're going to be able to line up and slow your running game down. So you have to stop teams from playing so downhill, you have to open things up vertically. And for whatever reason, at times, Ole Miss could not, whether it be the quarterback shuffling early or receivers not getting open or the inability to hit the deep balls. Guys are a little bit more open than they usually would be.
Well,
but he looked very consistent throwing the football down the field for an entire game, really, absent the bad interception. But aside from that, vertically, he was great.
And part of the reason that receivers were more open, I mean, I know some of it was personnel based, right? I mean, Vanderbilt's secondary is not very good. They don't have guys that can cover SEC receivers.
No, they've got that safety that's a player, but otherwise.
Yeah. But if you commit to stopping the run, you're going to have fewer bodies in the back end. And if there are fewer bodies in the back end, it stands to reason that you're going to be better throwing the football because there are fewer people to defend it. To me, the conundrum becomes when you're playing Ole Miss now, okay, how do you do it? Do you allot fewer bodies to the back end to try and take away the run and make them beat you with the pass? Or do you now have to really respect what Jackson Dart did with his arm against Vanderbilt? And now you've got fewer numbers in the box, which Ole Miss has proven it can run the football. It's a bit of a problem.
Sounds like the discussion we had. Sounds like the discussion we had about an hour or so ago with Mississippi State. I mean, both of these offenses, just balanced right now, and they're just difficult to stop.
Numbers from the game: Jackson Dart, 25 of 32, only 7 incompletions. 2 of those were to the other team. 3 touchdowns, 448 yards.
Yeah, that's the thing about him. There's 2 things. One's bad, one's good. The bad thing is he looks elite 9 times out of 10. And the one time he doesn't, it's bad. It's a bad mistake. Like, where is the guy that just – I mean, he was effective and underneath and hitting his checkdowns and everything was good, and then suddenly his brain just, gets out of his head and, leaves his body for a play, and he becomes – whatever that was, and then it gets right back in. And here's the positive. After he makes mistakes, so far this year, he's been really sharp. Halftime at Georgia Tech, got roasted by his coach on the broadcast and in the locker room, and came out and was flawless. After the interception here, what was it, the next 5 drives were touchdown drives? He is not letting the one mistake become next possession mistake. Or 2 possessions from now, he's making another one. Or he gets in his head and he's so mad at himself that it turns into 5 or 6 turnovers or bad decisions. It seems like he's got a very short memory of his bad decisions.
I don't remember them all off the top of my head.
That's good for a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely it is. So 5 interceptions on the season, and I feel like certainly 4, but maybe all 5 of them you're like, oh, don't make that throw. Bad decisions. It's not like they've been competitive interceptions.
Yeah.
You know, the interception against Kentucky, that was an underthrown ball with a linebacker dropping into coverage. That was not a great decision. The 2 in this game, not great decisions. The one against Georgia Tech was not a great decision. It seems like there was one, was it against Tulsa maybe? Whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, those are correctable. It's not an arm strength issue. It's a seeing what's happening with the defense issue. And he's now made, 5 starts at Ole Miss?
Yep.
You remember how we were talking about Will Rogers? 5 starts in? I know how Haydad was talking about him. I vividly remember that.
His 5th start was the Egg Bowl. He set a record.
Okay, 4 starts in.
Yeah. We just showed the last touchdown Ole Miss scored. Did Lane have some money on this one, making sure we got the cover there? What just happened? A little mercy, Lane, for God's sakes.
He kind of said he wished he had a do-over today.
Yeah, they had
I appreciate it. I took the Rebels and the points. I gave the points. I needed it.
It was like a scout team guy that was in, and he was playing hard, service team guy, and they give him a chance to score, and he scores.
He and Clark Lee had an interesting exchange, and it looked like both of them were on the same page and was like, yeah, coach, cool, no big deal, no problem at all.
Vandy went for 2 late.
Yeah, and onside kick.
And then kicked an onside kick. So it's like, okay, if you're going to keep playing, we'll keep playing too. I don't have an issue with that.
It looked like neither one of them had an issue either. It was a very cordial post-game handshake.
Sports Talk. Zach Evans, 11 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown. Quinshawn Judkins, 11 carries, 46 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jackson Dart only ran it twice. You think that was by design?
I felt like
didn't need to.
Yeah, I felt like that he was told. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. To avoid injury. Speaking of that, by the way, Michael Trigg. Lane didn't talk about it today, but we all have eyes that did not look particularly good for his shoulder or collarbone area. And
great catch. Not a good catch. A great catch, but he went down awkwardly.
And people are doing this, well, he wasn't that big of a part of the offense anyway. His numbers tell you that, but the gravity that his existence caused other people had to really pay attention to him because he is a tight end that can take the top off. And, maybe the freshman is a guy that can do that, in terms of route running and speed, but he's got a long way to go on the other aspects of being tight end. It's a big loss, regardless of what the stats say.
Yeah. Completely agree with that. Completely agree. Kari Coleman played but didn't play much. Is that right? I've got the
he registered a tackle, but they did not play him much. But that was obviously here. Breaking news: more at 11. A player getting back healthy and playing in the game is good. That's why we get paid the big bucks.
Ray Davis is a good running back for Vanderbilt. Had 105 yards, averaged 4 yards a carry. AJ Swan, he's got a bright future playing quarterback. 27 of 38, 281 yards, couple of touchdowns in the game. Will Shepard's a really good receiver, had 9 catches for 87 yards. You kind of stopped there, right, though? I mean, when we talked about Vanderbilt last week, we talked about those 3, and those 3 guys played well.
Yeah. With all due respect to Clark Lee and his program and what he's trying to build, I really like him and the way he conducts himself. And there were some Ole Miss fans that were bothered by the fact that he didn't take starters out and was going for 2 and stuff. And I thought he's trying to teach these kids how to not quit before they can win. That's culture building. It's, guys, we've got time on the clock. We're busting our you-know-what until that clock hits 0. I don't care what the score is. That's teaching a lesson. But either way, I like him and I like his program, and I want guys like Will Shepard to stay where they are. But we know how college football works. And if you're an Ole Miss or a State fan listening to this, you have players on your team that are currently getting tampered with, call Will Shepard's high school coach. Get that kid on your team. He is a player. And for a freshman to be that good, ask his high school coach what's up. See how much he actually cares about that Vanderbilt degree. You might as well. People are doing it to you.
Well, and you can bet that Ole Miss and Mississippi State aren't the only 2 that would benefit from Will Shepard being on their football team.
No way.
There's some teams that would benefit from A.J. Swan, the freshman quarterback, being their quarterback of the future as well. But yeah, I mean, you hope those guys stay. It's hard not to like Clark Lee. Felt like they had a pretty good game plan going into Saturday, especially coming off the open date. Vanderbilt is better than it has been, period.
Definitely.
But there's still a gulf between Vanderbilt and the rest of the SEC.